Welcome to today's talk where we share ideas to help families during COVID-19. My name is Regina DeMeo and I'm a family law attorney in Maryland and DC, where I've been practicing for over 20 years. And unfortunately, during COVID-19, some people have been making some very interesting discoveries about their partners while sheltering in place. So I thought I'd invite today's guest, Tracy Schorn. She wrote a book 4 years ago, Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life, which is based on her own experience. Thanks so much for being here, Tracy.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I got to ask you, how hard was it to write about your own personal story?
Well, the book really isn't much of my own personal story. I mean, there's some of it in there. I mean, I have street cred, right, as somebody who got chumped, but mostly the book was sort of from my blog, which I started in 2012, so it's been 8 years ago. Just trying to give people like a good friend would advice, common sense, protect yourself advice about what to happen if you get cheated on. And that's based in self-protection and self-respect and isn't about reconciling and trying to win somebody back or asking yourself what you did to make them cheat on you, which when I had this unfortunate experience happen to me 14 years ago, and unfortunately still the majority of all the resources out there were 100% reconciliation and blaming people for being cheated on. You know, what did you do to make them do this? And how are you going to improve yourself to win them back? That was everything that was out there. And I thought it was kind of dumb. And then I was years, not that many years, but several years out from the experience and happily remarried and at a point in my life where I could write about it. I started the blog and then the blog took off and then I wrote a book and still at it.
That's fantastic. So in your step-by-step guide, I love that you start by addressing some of the most common mistakes that people make after they discover a betrayal. Like one of my favorites was, one of the first ones is like, take care of yourself. Make sure that you're eating, make sure that you're sleeping. No, it's because we do forget to do that. And then tip number 6 was avoid discussing your feelings after discovery. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, avoid discussing your feelings with the person who cheated on you. I mean, discussing your feelings is fine with somebody who's like safe and available to listen to you. But don't discuss them with the person who just hurt you. I mean, they've just demonstrated to you in the most humiliating way that they don't care anything about your feelings. So bringing them more of your feelings and your very raw, angry feelings is not a good move. For one thing, it's attention, and people who do this are narcissistic, and all attention is good attention. So, some of them get off on it. I mean, they get off on your distress and they get off on the centrality of it and the drama. And, and the worst, they'll be indifferent, and then that's more pain. So what I tell people to do is focus on practical things you can do to protect yourself. And yeah, some of them are just basic things like take care of yourself because it's a marathon, but it's a very traumatic, shocking thing to have happen, and you're broadsided by it. And it's a very human impulse to want the person who hurt you to comfort you. But you absolutely have to understand that that's not where you go with that. So you need to find a safe place. A friend, an online community, a therapist office, some place where you can slop your grief, but you can't slop it onto the person who just, hurt you.
Right. So in your book, one of the things you talk about is not really giving them time to decide. A lot of them will say like, I need some time to think things through, and you're not in favor of that.
No, that's bullshit.
Why?
because the premise is wrong, right? You're not an option. This is not, let's make a deal. Like you're not competing for the wonderfulness that is someone who cheated on you. This, the whole assumption is wrong. We call that the pick-me dance. You're not going to, be in a competition. Yeah, they don't get time to decide because when they cheated on you, they made their decision. You get to decide. And, you have to decide if it's a deal breaker to you. and you have to decide if this relationship is acceptable to you. And that's what you control. You don't control if they cheat again or if they continue their love affair or whatever. That's outside your control. You have to decide what's acceptable to you and act quickly, because people who do this tend to be abusive in other ways. They've been financially abusive, they're risking your health, so shields up, get out.
No, that makes sense. So you talk about the importance of finding support. Like, did you find that helpful in your own situation? Because I
Yeah.
think some people are like, oh, I'm so ashamed, like I don't want to tell anybody.
Well, that's another misconception that I think people need to get over. Is, first of all, this is a super common experience. I think it's like the last taboo, right? We can talk about sex abuse, we can talk about being molested as a child, priests, everything, but nobody will talk about being cheated on in their marriage, except in this kind of, I ate the shit sandwich and I forgave them, and I'm a better human being and I'm friends with my ex and we go on Carnival cruises together. That narrative is out there. But the narrative of no, this person, I don't have anything to do with them, I don't have contact with them, they're out of my life for a reason. That is a very minority opinion. And I think I've staked my claim to the internet for it. There are more people taking that point of view. And I think Me Too has helped a lot too. But when this happened to me, there were online forums, there were places where you could talk to it. And I have to say, finding a community of people who had been cheated on, who were experiencing the same feelings I was in real time, was very helpful. Having a community of peers and the kindness of strangers helped a lot. Those dark nights of the soul when you're typing. The problem was, it's not the problem was that all those sites, and they're still out there, I won't name names, they're still out there, all those sites are reconciliation sites. They're all predicated on reconciling with your spouse. And even though they would have a chat, forums and chats and stuff where people could compare notes, the outcome you did not want was to divorce. And so the resources that people recommended, the goals that you were getting, were pretty much of the, give them time to decide, don't make any rash decisions, try to understand what they're feeling, talk to the affair part. I mean, just all this like horrible advice. And also devoid from the conversation, which I think is really important, was domestic violence or just emotional abuse. That it's risking your health, it's risking your sanity, it's not modeling sanity to your children, it's incredibly traumatic, and no one was saying this. And there are certainly blogs or online resources for emotionally abusive relationships or physically abusive relationships or verbal abuse, but nobody was looking at this through the lens of infidelity. And also, I mean, I could talk about what was wrong with the resources. I mean, I think another thing that was wrong with it is that all the talk of affairs was sort of, based on like, oh, it was a one-night stand, or this person made a mistake, or, and I'm sure that there's a segment of this that exists, but I've run this blog now for 8 years and we're up to 31 million page views. I've seen very few one-night stands. What I've seen is a lifestyle of deception, of serial cheating as a lifestyle choice. Something that's very hardwired, and personalities. People who have a couple screws loose. I'm not a shrink, I'm not diagnosing people, but you have to have something, a chip missing from you to conduct a double life for a long time and not be overcome with anxiety about it or guilt, or you have to suppress empathy for your partner, and you have to be okay with deceiving them at a very intimate level. And people were discussing that, so yeah, to get back to your original question, when I went through this, I was kind of in the dark, and I got out like a lot of people do, and then you sort of go like, oh my God, I'm never going to talk about this again. But I'm not that person. I mean, I would get on these sites and I would sort of be like, be free, get out, freeze your credit, get away. And then, but I was remarried. I met my husband, who was also chumped in his former marriage. And he's like, you should write a book. And I'm like, ugh. So I thought I'd write a blog. And just a kind of a brain dump of everything I learned from this experience. And I realized why people don't want to talk about it. And I realized why people carry the shame. There's a lot of blaming people for having this happen to them. But I just wanted it to be a resource where people didn't feel so alone, and give them, we have a thing called the Universal Bullshit Translator, like how to translate people's manipulations and dumb texts they send you. We have fun with it. There's humor. And so I tried to, long story short, I tried to build the support site that I wish I had when I went through it. And I joke that it's the trial tested results of what not to do, flubbed by yours truly, because all the terrible advice out there, I tried it, I failed at it. I'm okay, I survived. And that there's the other thing, the tagline is leave a cheater, gain a life. The other thing is that on the other side of it, there's a really good life waiting for you without this crap in it. And it's really easy to lose sight of that when you're suffering and you're in the middle of it, that you'll be okay. And I realize why people get to the other side, they don't really want to go back and relive the biggest nightmare of their life. So I am a writer, I'm a journalist, so I like to write and I like to draw. And so it was an outlet for me. And it took off. I mean, it took off, and there's a need for it. And I'm still at it. So
no, it's fantastic. And I mean, I've given it to many of my clients to read as when they come to my office, and they have all said it's a great resource. There's one chapter I think that you dedicate to just sort of explaining the way the cheater thinks, which I found interesting, right?
Right.
Like why even dedicate a chapter to the way they think?
Oh, because it's incredibly funny. I mean, when you get some distance from this, like, it's a deep vein of humor. I mean, it's bombastic and it's pompous and it's silly, and you can have a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's so, and also when someone's saying these ridiculous things to you, you're so gobsmacked. I mean, you're so out of your depth because you're just gobsmacked by the experience. And then to have somebody say something like, if you really knew them, you'd like them. Like, they're just like you. I mean, so we could all be friends together. I mean, just something really dumb. And you think in that moment when you're living this could not have happened to anybody else. This is a freak of the week. This is too weird. And then you get on my site and you realize, no, there's like hundreds of thousands of people who's heard the very same thing, the very same manipulation, the very same story. And the reason for that, or cataloging stupid shit cheaters say, is because there's only so many moves on the chessboard. There's only so many ways to manipulate a person and get them to keep investing in you. And once you see it, the manipulation for what it is, you can disarm it. And so we have some fun with that. So I write it out, and then I give people, here's how you can respond.
Yeah.
Here's the answer, here's how you can answer that. So it's kind of like the Cliff's Notes, I'm giving them answers to the quiz.
No, it really is fantastic. You outline, like, these are what your options are. Like, one option is to reconcile, and that's a long, hard road, which I've never done, right? Because that's not my job. My job is to amputate.
Right. You're the artillery. What I tell people, I just answered a letter the other day, somebody who wanted to reconcile. I tell people, don't do it without, first of all, a full array of STD tests, and second of all, post-nup, which is where, family law lawyer comes in. Sorry is a sorry does, and you're taking a huge leap of faith and a big investment on somebody who just proved to you that they're a bad investment. We were talking before, it's like if your business partner embezzled from you and then they're like, I still want to stay in business with you, let's invest more money. Like, you'd want something down, you'd want some kind of collateral. And I really think a post-nup is the way to go. And also, the other thing I tell people do is a credit check. Because there's a lot of financial infidelity and a lot of hidden debt and a lot of hidden credit cards. Double lives cost money, and you got to know where the money went. Right. So, I would want a full accounting, and I would not advise anyone to reconcile. And if the person balks, they don't want to do that, there's your sorry. Move on. Like, if they won't do it, they're not sorry. So,
No, actions definitely speak louder than words.
yeah.
So at the end, I love the way your story ended, right? Because you end the whole book saying like you will gain a life, right? And if you could just share a little bit of like how this has unfolded for you. I mean, like the story about when you, went to Australia, I think it was last summer. I mean, it's just a fantastic story.
Yeah, it was almost 2 years ago now. Well, Australia is like a different story, but yeah, I didn't think when this all happened to me that I would be writing about it, or, I have another life, where I don't do this. Yeah, I mean, early days of what had happened, I was living in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I worked for a newspaper there, and I bought a house, and like an old farmhouse, and my son was happy, and I thought they're going to bury me here, and that's it, I'm done. And I built I was happy, I had friends and beautiful garden, and then I met Paul, my husband, in New Orleans, and this was wildly impractical. He's a Texas trial lawyer. He'd just been through a divorce, and I was living in Pennsylvania. It was not a practical thing. But he's a wonderful man, and we dated long distance for 1.5 years, and then someone had to give up their job, and it was me. I had the worst of the 2 jobs. So we moved, and we've been married 10 years. 10 years this year. So he's a great guy. I mean, he's totally worth holding out for. I mean, but I always feel like I want to say, I don't think, oh, then you meet Prince Charming and your life is happy ever after. It was a stroke of freakish good fortune on my part, and recognizing good fortune when I met it, and taking a lot of personal risk. I had every right to like stay planted where I was and never move on again. Not never move on again, but like not take such a crazy, let's move to Texas, he's totally worth it, but absolutely no regrets. But I think I don't know what everybody's happiness looks like. It might be adopting orphans. It might be raising peonies. It might be, finishing a degree. There's lots of things you can do to have a great life. I just say, don't make it cheater the last thing you invest in and the last thing you love. Don't give them that power. They're stupid, frivolous, narcissistic people. They are piss puddle deep. They're not worth the rest of your life for an investment. So.
No, it's great advice. And like, for those of you watching, this is the copy of the book. And see, it's tabbed.
It's tabbed, okay. Yay.
It is a great course, and I just can't thank you enough.
Oh, that's my pleasure. My pleasure.
So if people want to follow the blog, it's Chumplady, right?
It's chumplady.com. Yep, chumplady.com.
Awesome. So if I can, I think I'm going to try and just share my contact information.
Sure.
So for those of you watching, if you'd like to tune in for further episodes, just follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. My handle is GenXSmarty, and that's my phone and email, which are the best ways to reach me. So thank you for tuning in, and see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
See ya.